a number one that comes off of a number one that I'm sure that people are going to pish-posh because it's Dan's slot, but me and you have talked about this the last time when we talked about Superior Spider-Man Returns. We don't play that. We're like homie. We don't play that. We just go in.
Did it come off of another number one, Spider-Boy,
yeah, I think
too?
It just keeps, it's like 80 number ones. Yeah,
Spider-Boy
number one as well. Were you shocked that Spider-Boy was so big in this?
Yes, didn't expect it at all.
I had no idea. So when I saw him, I'm not going to say that I'm the biggest Spider-Boy fan, but actually when I saw him, I'm like, oh, this might be a bad play. Like, to really hinge on Spider-Boy, that people are kind of divided. I'm going to tell some people really like Spider-Boy. Me and you don't mind Spider-Boy. We like him. But to really throw all your cards into that Spider-Boy deal might throw some people off. Superior Spider-Man number one. It's written by Dan Slott, pencils by Mark Bagley. In the first part, there is a backup, and that's the Mistaken Identity Crisis bit. John Dell inks on the Mistaken Identity Crisis. Nathan Stockman, the art on the negative reinforcement in the backup. Edgar Delgado, the colors throughout, and VC's Joe Caramagna, the letterer throughout, and looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I think that this whole thing, even the backup, looks very good. And it is kind of fun, but again, I kind of was thrown off a bit that it was so heavy with Spider-Boy, because you even said that by the end of this, it feels more like a Spider-Boy comic than anything else.
Right now, to me it does.
He's in the front up and the backup.
Yep.
It's almost like Spider-Boy and his amazing friends, because he starts off with Spider-Man, and you're going to go through this play of how is Spidey able to ease Spider-Boy back into things. He is taking him around. He is kind of mentoring him. I know that people are kind of triggered by that Spider-Man should never have a sidekick and things like that. I'm under the idea of, well, he has one here, and I'm going to read it and see if I have any fun with the book. And I'll tell you, I don't mind the Superior Spider-Man number one. I don't love it. I actually like Spider-Boy more than this, and that's what kind of gets me, where I already think I have my fill of Spider-Boy each month in the Spider-Boy comic. We never really sat there and thought, we were wondering to each other a little, but never really sat there and really nailed out the idea of what we think Superior Spider-Man coming back, what will it be? What will it mean? You said you don't think it's going to be Ock getting his fat butt in the costume again, right?
No.
But is it going to be something where, I don't know, because by the end of this issue, Doc Ock actually remembers his, the past. He remembers being Superior, actually ends up remembering that he was Peter Parker. That's the big play, because he hasn't had his memories. But what does that mean? And what is that going to be going forward? Is he going to team up with Peter, because he seems to be fully against Spider-Man anyway? And this whole villain that was played out, the Supernova, that we ended up, if you don't know who that is, was in that Returns number one, is after Peter, really wants to kill him. And Peter says at the point in this, the only way I can stop that is just by, it's like Spider-Man No More. It's a weird play of how it's fed up in this book of, the only way I can get away from Supernova is just not being Spider-Man. She's not going to hurt anybody else, just Spider-Man. So I'll stop being. So what happens then? How do we get to the deal? But we'll go into this. You end up where Spider-Boy and Spider-Man are fighting Mirage, and the whole play is, can I fight him, Spidey? Can I get involved? And he's like, yep, you could do D-listers. It's kind of a funny play where Mirage hears this. D-lister. At the end, actually admits, I guess I am a D-lister, because he gets taken down by Spider-Boy. But the reason why, besides not wanting Spider-Boy to get hurt, Peter is trying to teach him things. You can't end up saying, like, okay, I'm going to sit back here. You figure this out if it's, the lizard. You can't do that. He's going to get killed. So he's there, and they're playing the games, and hey, the Mirage has a bunch of different duplicates, and you're ending up where Spider-Boy's smart enough to figure out that the one casting a shadow is the real one. They take him down. Everybody's excited. It's still that introduction of Spider-Boy, even though he was around before, but he got erased. But everybody's kind of into Spider-Boy, and they got him, and they're looking on the billboards, and they're in like Times Square, and Spider-Boy accidentally almost takes off his mask and reveals his identity.
He's like, dude, you're on the Jumbotron. Don't take that off.
Yeah, he's on the Jumbotron. Now, in that, you do get more of the play where, because of Peter, and this, again, if you haven't been following a lot of the Spider-Verse stuff and the Dan Slott stuff, you might be a little off on some of these things of that Peter ended up going and remembering, having a life with Uncle Ben. Uncle Ben didn't die. And then when he came back, he ends up still remembering that. So when we're doing that, that's the play. Peter remembers a life that never existed while everybody in the real life have forgotten Spider-Boy. So they have that back and forth. And he says, I kind of wish that didn't happen. I had to actually say goodbye to Uncle Ben a couple times then. I get it, but I think I would have been like, well, that's bonus. It's like overtime with Uncle Ben.
It's like having a nice dream.
Yeah, they're showing him fishing there. He's like, I didn't like fishing. That's all it was. He hates fishing. So,
oh yeah, that was the one where he was handicapped. He never became Spider-Man, Spider-Verse stuff. You're right. Okay.
Yep. So yeah, that was the whole Spider-Verse deal, and it says the end of Spider-Verse and things. So you have all that, but again, they're going to have ice cream, and you're seeing little things here that when Peter says, hey, do you want to go get ice cream? This is something they used to do.
Yeah, we do this all the time, dude. It's no big deal.
It makes sense, though, because Peter thinks like it's this new thing that he's going to do. But it does make sense. It's a Peter Parker thing that they'd go. But in that, too, you end up where Spider-Boy constantly has been saying, I want to get web shooters. I need web shooters. I'm the non-web. And that comes into play in a kind of a clever way in the backup. Because, again, as this is going on, they then get attacked by the Supernova. Now, this was a villain made by Doc Ock when he was Spider-Man during the Superior Spider-Man. He didn't know about it, didn't remember, kind of one of those hidden things that we didn't even know about, but came to be in that return. So she's there, but she wants to attack Spider-Man. She didn't know it was Doc Ock, so she's going after him. Peter is like, I don't know you. But I think in his mind, he's like, what? There's a lot of things I didn't know Spider-Boy. So he's trying to escape it. He tells Spider-Boy he's got to get out. Like, this is
this is an A-lister right here.
Yeah, Supernova is actually pretty, mega level here, and starts just destroying buildings, going ham on it. And eventually, like I said, Peter realizes, I just have to get away from being Spider-Man. If I take the costume off, she's not going to hurt anybody else. So I got to get out of here. In the meantime, Doc Ock thinks it's hilarious because he set that up, and he's there and he has his octoids and they're filming. In the meantime, you also have Anna Maria. There's a lot of things getting thrown in that could end up getting us to that superior deal. Mm-hmm. We don't know where or when, right?
Yeah.
It's just a weird play. Who is going to be the superior deal, or is it just going to be Tails?
I think it somehow involves Spider-Boy.
That's my guess. Maybe that's the play. At one point in this,
Superior Spider-Boy.
You do have Spider-Boy say, there's something I need to tell you, and he doesn't get to tell him. But even so, he ends up, as we see in the backup, he was even the sidekick of Doc Ock as Superior Spider-Man. So there's a cool play there. But in this, though, again, there's a lot of reiterating what happened in the returns. If you don't like Spider-Boy, you're not going to like this. I hate to say it, but if you are somebody who said, and there were people when we did our podcast and the video, that they just said, I do not want to read any Spider-Boy. Then again, I think that goes with Dan Slott as well, so they probably wouldn't be reading this. But again, if it's too much, I get it. I understand that. I even thought, again, that I was surprised there was so much. So by the end of this first bit of the story, it's kind of cool. It just goes by really quick.
The front up is very short.
You are going so quick, and you're giving little. And again, Dan Slott does a good enough job that even though he is kind of just at points recapping things that we had in that returns, he twists it a little. He adds a little here. He has it through dialogue, and it doesn't feel as forced or, overbearing as some other comics. But by the end of this front up, the big play really is that one of the Octoids goes. And I love the idea that he sends the Octoids out to film the fight. He wants to actually get every angle he can of Spider-Man dying. That's all he really wants. He wants to go and make some, crazy movie later that can play at an IMAX 3D. He wants every angle. The one Octoid just goes off on its own, and he's mad at first because that Octoid ends up getting, a play of Spider-Man by himself. You end up having Peter go into an alley and says, if this whole Supernova is after only Spider-Man, doesn't know I'm Peter Parker, I'm going to take the costume off, and then she'll calm down and I'll figure things out.
Yep.
The funny thing is, exactly what he wanted to have not happen to Spider-Boy, because Spider-Boy was taking this bet, but that was like sitting on a building right at times. He does it, and his spider sense goes, and he starts arguing with the spider sense. He's like, oh, man, and it's really bad. He says, oh, my God, it hurts so much. I get it, spider sense. This supernova, I'm dealing with it. And it's because the Octoid's there, and it's like, it really is creeping around this one
It's
paw.
the same as those spider
hilarious.
bots he used to have that he would send out.
This just makes me laugh because it's like squinting as it
Isn't
comes
that a part
over.
of his arm that he kind of
Yeah,
sends
it is.
off?
Yeah, the whole deal sends off. So it ends up filming
It's pretty cool.
Peter. So I thought it was funny. And then Supernova does say, well, if I can't find Spider-Man, I'll just skedaddle here. I'll find you. I'll get you, Spider-Man. I know where you are, whatever. I'll get you, and goes off. So then you end up having Doc Ock's like, oh, here comes the Octoids. And they all connect onto his, tentacle deal. And he's like, oh, man, what do I need to have this? Why do you give me information about Spider-Man? I wanted this big fight. Oh, crap. And he sees that he unmasked. It's Peter Parker. And that is the trigger he needed. And if you haven't been reading, a bunch of different things, not just Dan Slott stuff, even stuff from Zeb Wells, even stuff going back to Nick Spencer, like a lot of, he hasn't had his memories. And he needed them. He wanted them, kind of like how Ben Reilly wanted his stuff from the Beyond deal. At one point, Ock thought it was that as well. And now he sees that Peter Parker and he's like, boom, I was Peter Parker. Yep. Now it makes sense. Spider-Man's Peter Parker. I was Peter Parker. That ends up being that pretty much ties everything together to make sense. Even though at points he was remembering making stuff as Peter. You know what I mean? It was weird. But this is the trigger that gives him everything, including what I thought was funny right in the forefront. Aunt May giving him a kiss on the cheek because he's got that thing for Aunt May. So it did make me laugh, but you have a bunch of things from Superior there on the page going around. And he says, now I remember everything. He thinks that this is going to be the way that he can now, again, he could be Superior. Who knows? But it's weird. Like, where are we going from here? It almost feels like these are like, okay, this could have been a one-shot. Doc Ock gets his memories back, and now he's a villain in the regular Spider-Man stuff, so I want to see.
I mean, anytime a major villain knows Peter Parker's identity is problematic.
And it's so funny. It's problematic, but then, again, there's those intriguing things that he was, like, it's not even just, oh, my God, Peter Parker,
he knows
Peter.
Everything.
Oh, my God, now I know everything, and all these things, Aunt May, like, he knows everything. And what is he going to do with that? Which way is he going to go? I really, really like that Superior Spider-Man by Christos Gage that you had when he went to San Francisco and actually tried to be Superior Spider-Man, where he was learning, like, in that series, he, like, would save the day, but the whole street block was all destroyed, and he's, like, going away, and then Anna was like, no, you have to help pick. He was so mad because he didn't think that was stuff he had to do, but he was learning how to be a hero. I really like that, but I don't think we're going that route. But that's the front part. Then we go to the backup, and again, the backup is heavy Spider-Boy.
Oh, yeah.
This is Spider-Boy back in the day being mentored by Doc Ock, Superior Spider-Man, and the clever thing I mentioned before was right away where Peter will not let Spider-Boy have web shooters. The minute that you see him in the backup, he is zipping around everywhere with web shooters because Doc Ock doesn't care. Doc Ock had no care in the world, and they're fighting Mr. Negative, and they're going through all these. It's okay. It's more the idea of remembering how Doc Ock was as Superior Spider-Man. That's kind of the play that I get with the angle of, hey, we just didn't know that Spider-Boy was always there. Doc Ock has no time for Spider-Boy. He ends up at one point almost beating the crap out of him. He does hit him a couple times, though, but then later realizes, oh, my God, I shouldn't hit a kid. I was abused myself as the Fantastic Four show up. And it's the FF team from back in the day with Miss Thang, Medusa, She-Hulk, and Ant-Man. They come down because Mr. Negative is stealing a butt. The idea of what he is trying to load up.
It's a bunch of Kirby machinery into Fantastic Car.
There's way too much. I mean, we've all seen those things online where there's a guy on a bike and he's got like 8 million tons of like hay and crap on the bike behind him. That's what it looks like. He has grabbed a bit too many things. Doesn't seem like he can get anywhere, but they end up stopping him. Again, it's Mr. Negative. He's grabbing stuff to get him in the negative zone and to do negative things. And you end up having Superior Spider-Man and Spider-Boy trying to stop that.
He negative zaps Spider-Boy somehow and turns him bad.
At one point he negative. And that's the play, too. And this is, I guess, what we're playing with, maybe, is the idea that the connection between Superior Spider-Man Ock and Peter is Spider-Boy, who was there for both of them. And did he notice? And what could this mean? What will Doc Ock think? He says he remembers everything. I wish that we saw that Doc Ock actually, and we might find out later, he really took a liking to Spider-Boy.
Mm-hmm.
But does he remember Spider-Boy? He says he remembers everything, but everybody else forgot about. And in that spread, there's no Spider-Boy. Yeah. So I wonder, like, how's that play? Because Spider-Boy's actually nice in this, where it's Doc Ock, and he's just yelling and nasty. But somehow Spider-Boy thinks that it's because he's been affected by Mr. Negative, that's the reason why he's upset.
Yeah,
and he's like,
that's a good play.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, like, give him a break. I got to figure out. But he's always like, even to the FF, because they say, well, we'll take you. At the one point, you have Doc Ock say, take this kid. You guys take kids in. I don't want them. Take them to, the FF, take them to the academy, do whatever. I don't want any parts of them. I'm out. And you end up having Bailey's like, oh, well, he's just got some things to work through. So we'll see. We'll see how it is.
Because it would be traumatic. I mean, he's used to Peter Parker, who's a nice guy,
Yeah. And even then so that is kind of a cool little guest play of like, how did he react when it wasn't Peter? And did he know? Because he sees that he's kind of miserable. But is it going to be like, if we keep doing this, keep showing different things of why? Oh, that's why. It's not because he's I don't know. But heavy Spider-Boy in both. And I don't know if you'll agree, but by the end, I was scratching my head like, what are we going to do with this book? Like, what is this book going forward? Is this something that I can see? Like, I don't get a mission statement here or an elevator pitch yet that I can wrap my head around to say, ooh, this could be a long run.
Well,
or this could be, this many. It's weird.
You never got that really in the last run this slot did on Spider-Man. That there was kind of just...
Is it me, or, I mean, people will probably agree, but it just feels like they just decided, hey, Dan, you kind of are better at doing Spider-Man than a lot of other things, so just do some Spider-Man.
I think that's what it is.
And then he did the Spider-Man deal, and then they're like, okay, well, how about we now call it Superior Spider-Man and just see if things, almost like, we'll see if it works out down the road. It feels weird. It feels like random things that you're... But I didn't hate it. I had some fun with this more than I'm having with this. Maybe that's the play, too. Maybe it's because I really don't like Zeb Wells stuff that this ends up being elevated a bit. Like, okay, I had a little bit of fun. You did have one point, too, like weird things that I laughed at where Supernova, because she was around Doc Ock, Spider-Man, Peter Parker, she's like, I'm going to use your catchphrase. And it's the cast to die. And that's where Peter's like, oh, God, I know what this means. Like, he connects it, too. So both of them seem to now know what the other might have done or what they're doing. And I don't know. This Sunspot doesn't seem like such a bad villain because just wants to get Spider-Man. Yeah, Supernova. Yeah. So it's not like it's like the end of the world deal that they have to. I don't know how they're going to resolve this. I really don't. It's such a weird book. But what would you give it?
I would say that, being a fan of, well, I guess when you look back on Nick Spencer and Zeb Wells, you realize how good Slott was compared to these other guys. So that's probably elevates it a lot in my book because I did like that a lot, all the stuff that they're going over on here. And also I like Mark Bagley and I like Spider-Boy. So I'll give it a 7.5.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 7.
Yeah, a little more positive than you.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.